So what weight class did you wrestle in?
I wrestled heavyweight most of the time because we didn't have a heavyweight wrestler, and the next weight class down was 185, and I weigh about 180 pounds. So, but the 185 pounder that we had, the coach decided that he wasn't able to handle the bigger boys as well as I could. So lucky me, I got to be the guy to go wrestle guys that weighed 80 pounds, 100 pounds more than me. But what are you gonna do? It's all part of life, and you do the best you can do with what you got. I got beat up sometimes, but I held for at least quite a while. I held the record for the fastest pin, and that was done at the heavyweight class. So I did okay sometimes. Like I say, sometimes you get guys you just were too big and too strong, and you couldn't beat no matter what you did. But you also had guys that you could manhandle a little bit, push them around. Intimidation was a big factor, and conditioning, because a lot of the heavyweights weren't very conditioned, so that kind of helped me a little bit, being in better shape. I could last a lot longer and be stronger and quicker. So that helped. But like I say, sometimes didn't matter how fast you were or how good a shape you were in. If the guy was a whole lot bigger and stronger, there was just not much you were going to do about it. I remember one kid, I had him down. I was trying to get him pinned, and he was just so big I couldn't pin him. I tried and tried for, you have 3 minute periods. I had him in the position of getting pinned probably within the first 30 seconds of the period, and I couldn't get that kid. I couldn't get both shoulders down for anything. He was too strong. He just laid there with his shoulder up like this, and I couldn't get that shoulder down to save my life. I even stuck my hand down underneath his shoulder blade and pretended like I was trying to rock him over. The ref finally gave me the pin, but I couldn't pin the guy. I had to cheat, put my hand underneath there, pretend like I was rocking him back up to try to get both shoulders down. But I got it finally. I cheated. But he was one of those kids. He was just too big, too strong. There was nothing I could do about it. He was bigger and stronger than I was, but he wasn't a very good wrestler. And by then he was tired. So I got him. It wasn't very much fun when you get one of the real big guys down, and their coach starts screaming at him about letting some little guy pin them, and they start getting mad. That got a little scary a few times. Not as scary as having kids, though. I had 3 daughters, one of which is taping this at the moment. 3 daughters, I'll tell you what, for a dad is not a enjoyable thing. It's
Hey.
tough and it's scary.
What about flooding in Iowa too with the Mississippi River? How many times
Well,
did it
the
flood?
Mississippi wasn't the big problem. It was the Iowa River. That went right through the middle of town. And that's the one. It would flood every now and again. And the last, geez, I'll have to say 5 years, it's had 6 years, it's had probably 3 years where it flooded very, very
Did it ever do that when you were a kid?
bad. Not as bad as it's been lately, no. It used to, the low-lying areas would flood, and that happened almost every year. But obviously, you didn't build anything in those areas much. It was part of the city park was in the lower flatland by the river, and that flooded, but it didn't do any damage. It didn't do anything. There was nothing there except fields and stuff. So a little bit of topsoil from the river just made the grass grow better once it receded, and there was ponds there that took the water in and all that stuff. So it was never any major damage in that yearly flooding, but It did once in a while would flood and it would hit the businesses and houses and some apartment complexes, but that didn't happen very often. And the last few years, it's like I say, probably the last 6 years, it's probably happened about 3 times where it was very bad. Took out well, it was 2 years ago. It flooded so bad that the only way to get across town was to go out to Interstate 80. All the other bridges were underwater. So obviously that's not good. And they almost closed Interstate 80. That's how bad it was. And that's like crazy high for flooding. But they didn't, so, and it stopped raining at that point, so it got better rather than worse. So
How about tornadoes?
all around Iowa City, but we never had a tornado in Iowa City. We had straight line winds go through a couple years ago. Obviously, I wasn't living there, but it was essentially a tornado, but rather than have the funnel cloud, it's just winds blowing through. And that did some damage to some of the sororities and frat houses and businesses, and that was bad. But when I was a kid, we walked everywhere we went, and I saw one time up in Hills, Iowa, which is about 7 miles away from Iowa City, you could see a funnel cloud coming down, and I gotta say that was a little spooky, because you're walking out in the middle of nowhere, essentially in a big field, and you can visually see a funnel cloud a long ways away, but you could see it form and then come down to the ground. It was a little spooky, but that was as close as I ever got. I never was involved in one actually, so that's good because that's one experience I can live without. You know, it's fun to say you lived through something scary and stuff, but you know, if I don't have to go through it, that's just fine. I'll say I almost did. That's close enough.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
I've got some bills I could share with you, if you like.
No, I'm all set.
You got enough of your own?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure there'll be more to come.